Hi, I am A.F. Winter, and this is Confusional Arousals. I have looked over the episodes I have released this year, and I have to say, I have been a real downer. Graveyards, my own mortality, and political unrest. Sometimes you just have to give yourself a break. I have a 2009 Toyota Camry. I'm not bragging or anything, but it is old. Every time I bring it in to be serviced, they find something else wrong with the car. And I think, it's an old car. There will always be something wrong with it. I am in my 60s. If I had any deep-looking medical procedure on this body of mine, there would be something wrong with it as well. The point is that the world is like me, like my car. There is always something to be upset about, and we choose to be angry all the time. But we don't have to. So, today's episode is about the stupidest idea I could think of. Remember, I am a deeply introspective guy, and I like thinking about complex or idiotic thoughts. I think I have come up with something that will satisfy both desires. As you know, I use AI for certain aspects of this podcast. For my outro music, I usually create a song where I write the lyrics and AI writes the music. And I also use AI to create the episode image when I'm not using my own photographs. I need to tell you that I have the greatest respect for artists who can compose, play an instrument, or create beautiful and/or fascinating images. I am just not one of them. But I am waiting for that composer, musician, or visual artist to stumble across this podcast and want to work with me. Until that time, I must hobble along as I am. In this episode, I would like to add another group to that list, the philosophers. I have not used ChatGPT much in my life. Generally, I am pretty okay with the word things. But I gave it a prompt to see what would happen. I requested a bunch of made-up and ridiculous quotes by non-existent people on the subjects of love, life, and happiness. And after several attempts, this is what it spit out. It should be noted that I did not recite these quotes in a graveyard or in a public park dressed as a crying clown complete with running mascara. I will read you the quote and then expound on those meaningless words ad nauseum. So, without further ado, here is a Pandora's box of unnatural quotes. The first quote I would like to share with you is by Mirabelle Thorne, itinerant philosopher. Mirabelle, if I didn't make it clear enough in my introduction, has been made up by AI. Although I did Google her name, and there is a Mirabelle Thorne who sells blood sausage in Shrewsbury. I do not believe she is the philosopher I am quoting here. Anyway, back to the quote. Love is not a feeling you fall into, but a car you agree to keep repairing. Now, you may remember that at one point in this podcast, maybe several, I have warned you not to take any advice from me that has anything to do with love. But since the quote is AI, I think you are obligated to listen and learn from it. Once again, love is not a feeling you fall into, but a car you agree to keep repairing. Now, what this means to me is that love is a long-term proposition. I believe that we can fall in love instantly. Some enchanted evening. You may see a stranger, you may see a stranger across a crowded room. Now you know why I don't sing my own songs. That great show tune from the 1949 Rodgers and Hammerstein musical South Pacific. I think I have never fallen in love slowly. It was always in a moment, a look, a taste, a touch. Mostly looks, but a few touches, and a taste or two. But was that love or attraction? Attraction, or let's be honest, lust, is a sprint. Love is a marathon. It is for the long run. It is a commitment. It really is like having an old car. You have to work on it every day. You know every squeak, every rattle, every wobble. That's how an old car talks to you. But you don't see those squeaks, wobbles, or rattles as a negative. You love them because they remind you of your shared history. Now, I'm not a mechanic, and I don't work on my car. It is approaching 20 years old, but I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it. My dad gave it to me. He drove it. He fixed it. I feel my dad in the car when I drive it. When my middle daughter lived with me, she used it. She was not the most careful driver. I had to put 3 sets of tires and change the brakes twice in 2 years. She knocked off the driver's side mirror. I wish I could remember all the excuses she told me for that one. I look at it now in the driveway. Every few days I have to inflate the back tires. They have a weird leak in them that no tire place has been able to fix. No matter. It's not a big deal to take out my portable pump. I walk slowly around the car as the tires inflate, looking at every scratch and every dent, which reminds me of the history I have with it. Yes, love is like an old car that you cannot get rid of, because it has value. It reminds you of who you are, who you were, and forgives you for every new scar you give it. And I thought this episode was going to be silly. AI philosophy. How I long for the days of human philosophers. Now, Nietzsche was a funny guy. Übermenschen and the hubris of humanity. Chuckles galore. Shall we try another? The Prime Minister Velk Dur of the unmapped provinces is speculated to have said, "Life is a staircase that occasionally turns into a fish. Step accordingly." Velk, one of my several dear imaginary friends who grew quite adept at riding a unicycle backward, met an untimely end in the bathtub. I told him on numerous occasions that the bathtub is not a suitable place for unicycles or capybaras. But he didn't listen. He didn't listen. Back to the quote. Life is a staircase that occasionally turns into a fish. Step accordingly. There's a real quote that is attributed to several people, so I won't mention who, but the quote speaks to my imaginary quote. The older I am, the less I know. Life is a staircase, if I choose it to be. But then I have to spend my entire life proving to everybody else that life is a staircase. Oh, life is a staircase because you must keep moving higher, so keep trying. The staircase is carpeted because you have to work quietly towards your goals. Life is a staircase, because if you fail, if you fall, you will have to start all over again. Ugh. The thing is that life is what we believe it will be until it isn't. There will always be a moment when life changes into something else, and we have to redefine our philosophy. When I moved out of my parents' apartment, when I went to study in England, when I got married, when I had kids, when I got divorced, when I lost my dad. Every major event in our lives changes the definition of what we believe life to be. And when we get angry at what life has given us, it is because our reality does not mesh with our perception of what reality should be. A lot of my kids in middle school love to tell me, "That's not fair." Is life fair? In their minds, it is. But when is life really fair? It isn't. It is random. I think that is why the popular idea of the afterlife is almost universally accepted. Life sucks now. But after you are dead, then things will be fair. That person who was mean to you will be punished, and if you are good, you will be rewarded. If I believe in punishment and rewards, I can still believe that my life is a staircase. But sometimes that doesn't work, and our idea of life changes maybe into a fish. Then I have to deal with my life being a fish. At first, I grumble at the difficulty of stepping on a fish, but then I get used to it. In my version, I'm stepping on a dead, smelly fish with its dead, fishy eyes looking at me. But you might believe that your staircase turns into a pretty fish in an aquarium, swimming along carelessly, waiting for someone to feed it. Until one day, something crappy happens to you, and you realize that the fish is just a prisoner having to wait around for a fickle deity to give it what it wants or needs to survive because it has no power in and of itself. And then, life changes into a single sock with a hole in it, which has fallen behind the dryer. Or a unicorn. The point is, we try to understand life by containing it. We only understand something when it fits into our own personal conception of what it should be. But life is beyond our metaphors, and we will never truly understand it. Oh, we might have an inkling of some very small part in that area over there, but over here, and beyond that ridge, we got nothing. I mean, just the other day, I found out that you could make a lovely soda bread with nothing but self-rising flour and silken tofu. Silken freaking tofu! Life to me is now a weenus, a slang term for the loose flap of skin located on the underside or tip of your elbow. You don't believe that life is a weenus? Prove me wrong and write a full rebuttal in the comments section of this podcast. And I'm not talking to you, Gary, so keep your comments to yourself. Norm, a philosopher of sideway truths, has said, "To live well, walk slightly askew. Straight lines attract unnecessary conclusions." I like this unquote very much. To live well, walk slightly askew. Straight lines attract unnecessary conclusions. And I think I have always followed this advice in one form or another. Askew is an interesting word that means turned, twisted, or positioned to one side, out of line, or not straight. It functions as both an adjective and an adverb. Interesting. Most of our lives, we focus on the goal. But in this maxim, or guiding principle, we focus on the process. We need to walk askew or weirdly, which becomes infinitely more enjoyable. A leisurely stroll in the park, as opposed to counting our steps. I enjoy changing small aspects of my walk. How long is my stride? What if it were 2 inches longer or shorter? How would that look? Would it change who I am as a person? Of course it would! I think changing one small aspect of your life would change your entire life. We have already talked about the butterfly effect. Don't you remember the nonsense I spouted a year ago on this podcast? Well, maybe that's the little thing you should change in your life. I once had a friend who would put on his shoes. Right sock, right shoe. Left sock, left shoe. We were in an acting class together, and he did a scene which started off with him shoeless. The critique afterwards only superficially touched on his acting work, but a good half an hour was spent on how weirdly he put on his shoes. I think one of my classmates said that most serial killers put on their shoes in that way. The next day, I tried putting on my shoes like that as well, and I have to tell you, I felt the darkness arising in me. All through the day, I had many felonious thoughts, which were a marked increase on my usually sporadic felonious thoughts. There hasn't been a day in the last 40 years that I haven't put on the right sock, right shoe, left shoe. But I feel the temptation of the evil one. Pooey, pooey. Another aspect I like about this quote, to live well, walk slightly askew, straight lines attract unnecessary conclusions, is that if you walk normally, people think they have figured you out, which attracts unnecessary conclusions. But if I walk askew, people are confused about why a normal person would walk like that. So the viewer can only come to 2 conclusions. One, that I am not normal and should be avoided, which is not altogether unreasonable. And 2, that something about me needs further explanation. I become a man of mystery, someone who is infinitely interesting. Either explanation is superior to me just being looked upon as a regular Joe. My final quote for this episode is by Lady Brine Ashcroft, a Solinist of peculiar etiquette. She said, "Never trust the happiness that arrives on time. It has been rehearsed." If you could buy happiness in a can, it wouldn't be happiness. I think happiness is, and if you have been listening to this podcast for more than an episode or 2, you know that I know absolutely nothing about that subject. But once again, I think happiness must arrive unexpectedly. You're watching your kids playing in the park, and one of them brings you a flower. Or you're having a rough day, and your dog jumps on your lap after you have collapsed on the couch and licks your face as if it had 3 tongues, both gross and wonderful at the same moment. In fact, most of the things I have planned in my life have never produced the results I expected, sometimes better, sometimes worse. I am reminded of the age we are living in, of social media. Every post has to be of me living life to the fullest. I have to be doing exciting things. I have to be smiling broadly. But I think the very act of smiling makes me less happy. Maybe I just hate authority figures, because when anyone points a cell phone at me and tells me to smile, I want to punch them in the nose. Don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel. I'll smile if I damn well feel like it. I think happiness comes when it's unexpected, in life's small moments, when you realize how lucky you are to have that person, that animal in your life, when you see existence in all its complexity and beauty, and you realize what a gift the act of living is, and that the only way to continue to feel such wonder is to pass along that gift with love, compassion, and forgiveness. I am A.F. Winter, and this has been Confusional Arousals.